The cake was still burning when she did it. 18 candles flickered across the chocolate frosting like tiny accusations. The small apartment in Surelire smelled of vanilla, smoke, and the faint woody cologne he had worn since the day her mother died. Ji Hoon stood on the other side of the tiny dining table, arms crossed, that familiar half-smile on his face, the one that said, "I'm proud of you," kid, without ever saying the words. Elara didn't wait for him to cut the first slice. She walked around the table, heart hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it, rose on her tiptoes, and pressed her lips to his. For one stunned second, the world stopped. His mouth was warm, surprised, tasting faintly of the green tea he had been drinking all day. Then his hands flew to her shoulders, not pulling her closer, not pushing her away, just frozen. She felt the exact moment reality crashed back into him. He jerked back like she'd burned him, eyes wide, chest heaving. Elara, what the hell? The candles kept burning. One of them dripped wax onto the icing like a tear. "I'm not a little girl anymore, Ji Hoon," she whispered, voice shaking but steady. "I haven't been for a long time." He dragged a hand down his face, the same hand that had once held her while she cried herself to sleep at 7 years old, the same hand that taught her how to ride a bike through the dusty streets, how to throw a proper punch, how to survive in a world that had already taken her mother. "You're 18, he said hoarsely, like the number itself was a curse. 18, Elara. I changed your diapers. I sat through your nightmares. His voice cracked. I buried your mom. And I fell in love with the only man who never left me." She shot back, tears blurring the candlelight. "Not when the bills piled up. Not when you had to work 3 jobs. Not when every social worker tried to take me away. You stayed." Ji Hoon turned away, gripping the back of a chair so hard his knuckles went white. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, broken only by the soft hiss of dying candle flames. Finally, he spoke, so quietly she almost missed it. "Get your coat. We're going for a drive." She thought it was the beginning. She had no idea it was the start of 4 years of exile. The night after her 18th birthday, Ji Hoon drove for 6 hours straight, without stopping. Elara sat in the passenger seat of his old battered Toyota, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the dark Lagos-Ibadan expressway as streetlights blurred past like dying stars. The radio played low, some old fella song that used to make her mother dance in the kitchen. Neither of them spoke. When they finally pulled up to the small guest house in Ibadan, Ji Hoon killed the engine and rested his forehead against the steering wheel. "I can't stay with you anymore, Elara," he said, voice raw. "Not after what you did. Not after what I almost let myself feel." She turned to him, eyes swollen from silent tears. "So you're abandoning me too? Just like everyone else?" He flinched as if she'd slapped him. "I'm not abandoning you. I'm saving you. You deserve a life without carrying the weight of a man who watched you grow up. I'll pay for your university. I'll make sure you're safe. But I can't be near you right now. Every time I look at you, I see the little girl I promised your mother I'd protect, and I also see the woman who just kissed me like she's been waiting years to do it." He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is for your first year. There's more coming. Don't look for me, please." Then he got out, walked her to the door of the guest house, and left without another word. The next morning, when she woke up, his car was gone. Ji Hoon took a construction job in Abuja, working under the brutal sun laying bricks for new government buildings. Every night, he came back to a tiny room with a leaking ceiling, exhausted, covered in dust, and opened his phone to the single photo he allowed himself, Elara at 16, laughing as she beat him at chess in their old apartment. He never liked the photo. In it, she still looked like his little girl. He deleted it after 3 months. Instead, he started searching her name online every Friday. He watched from afar as she got accepted into the University of Lagos on a partial scholarship. Saw blurry photos of her orientation week. Read the single email she sent him after the first semester. "I hate you for leaving, but I'm doing well. Thank you for the money. I won't ask for more." He wired extra anyway, anonymously. At night, he lay awake remembering the exact pressure of her lips on his, soft, trembling, brave. And he hated himself for how much he wanted to feel it again. Elara threw herself into her studies like a woman possessed. She double-majored in computer science and business, joined every tech club on campus, and coded late into the night in the library because sleeping meant dreaming of Ji Hoon's hands on her shoulders, pushing her away. She dated once, a nice boy from her coding class who brought her flowers and made her laugh. On their third date, he tried to kiss her, and she pulled back so fast she nearly fell off the bench. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "There's someone else." The boy never understood why she looked so sad when she said it. She started a small side hustle building simple websites for local businesses. The money wasn't much, but it meant she could stop using Ji Hoon's transfers. She sent every kobo back to the account she knew he still paid from with a note. "I don't need your guilt money anymore." He kept sending it anyway. Ji Hoon, now working as a site supervisor in Kano, grew quieter, harder. His friends teased him about never dating. He smiled tightly and said he was too busy. In truth, every woman who smiled at him felt wrong. Too young, too old, too loud, too quiet. None of them had Elara's fire. None of them had survived losing their mother at 6 and still managed to smile like the sun. He started keeping a journal he never let anyone see. Page after page filled with the same sentence. "She was supposed to be my daughter. Why does my heart refuse to remember that?" Elara launched her first startup idea during a university hackathon, a micro-lending app for market women. It won first prize. Investors started calling. She cut her hair shorter, started wearing power suits, and learned how to speak with the quiet confidence of someone who had already lost everything once. But some nights, after closing deals and shaking hands, she would sit on the balcony of her tiny off-campus apartment and whisper into the darkness. "Come back, Ji Hoon. I'm not a child anymore. Please see me." She never sent the messages she typed to his old number. Ji Hoon had moved again, this time to a remote site in Port Harcourt, overseeing an oil company's staff quarters. The work was dangerous, the pay good. He sent the money to her new account without a note. One drunken night, he almost called her. His thumb hovered over her name for a full minute before he threw the phone across the room and shattered it. The next day, he bought a new one and blocked her number. He told himself it was mercy. By the time Elara graduated top of her class and secured seed funding for her fintech company, she had stopped waiting. Or, at least, that's what she told herself. She moved into a modest apartment in Lekki, hired her first 2 employees, and worked 18-hour days. Her face started appearing in tech magazines as one to watch. Ji Hoon saw every single article. He was back in Lagos now, working odd jobs, living in a face-me-I-face-you room in a Jeej. He had lost weight. The silver at his temples had spread. He looked like a man who had been running from something for too long. One rainy evening, stuck in traffic on the 3rd mainland bridge, a massive digital billboard lit up the downpour. Okonkwo Finance, empowering dreams. CEO Elara Okonkwo. Her face, older, sharper, breathtaking, smiled down at the city, her dark skin glowing against the bright lights, natural curls framing her determined expression. Ji Hoon stared until the cars behind him started honking. That night, for the first time in 4 years, he let himself cry. Not for the little girl he had raised, but for the woman he had lost, and for the unbearable truth he could no longer deny. He had stayed away to protect her. Instead, he had broken them both. The penthouse in downtown Lagos smelled of money and orchids. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the glittering night skyline of Victoria Island, the Atlantic a dark mirror beyond the lights. Elara Okonkwo, now 22, CEO of a fast-rising fintech startup she'd built from the coding skills Ji Hoon taught her on an ancient laptop, stood at the glass, champagne flute in hand, hosting a launch party everyone said would make or break her company. She wore red, the kind of red that made men forget their own names, the vibrant fabric hugging her curves and contrasting beautifully with her rich, dark skin. Her assistant appeared at her elbow, nervous. "Ma'am, there's a man at the entrance who insists on seeing you. He won't give his name, but he said to tell you the cake is still burning." Elara's heart stopped. She set the flute down so hard the stem nearly snapped. "Send him up." Minutes later, the private elevator dinged. Ji Hoon stepped out, older, broader in the shoulders, a few threads of silver at his temples that somehow made him more devastating. His Korean features were sharper now, carrying the quiet weight of years. He wore a simple black shirt and jeans that had seen better days, the same man who once fixed leaky roofs and cooked jollof rice with too much pepper just to make her laugh. His eyes found hers across the crowded room, and the air thickened. Guests parted without realizing why, sensing the gravity between them. Elara walked toward him slowly, heels clicking on marble, chin high even as her pulse thundered. "You disappeared," she said when she reached him, voice low enough that only he could hear. "After that night. You left a note saying you were going up north for work and never came back. For years, Ji Hoon. Not a call, not a text, nothing." "I had to," he said roughly. His gaze dropped to her mouth for a split second before he forced it back up. "You were 18. I was 34. I raised you. If I'd stayed, I would have crossed a line I couldn't come back from. And now..." She stepped closer, close enough to smell that same woody cologne mixed with something sharper. Rain, travel, regret. "I'm 22. You're 38. The world still won't approve, but I'm not asking the world anymore." Ji Hoon swallowed hard. His hand twitched at his side, as if fighting the urge to touch her. "I came back because I saw your face on a billboard on the 3rd mainland bridge," he admitted. "And I realized I'd been lying to myself for 4 years. Every mile I put between us, I was still raising you, still protecting you, still," he exhaled shakily, "still in love with the woman you became." Elara's breath caught. She reached up, the same way she had on her 18th birthday, but this time she didn't rush. Her fingers brushed his jaw, feeling the stubble, the tension, the years of restraint. "Then stop running," she whispered. For a heartbeat, the entire penthouse seemed to hold its breath. Ji Hoon's hand finally moved, sliding to the small of her back, pulling her flush against him with a gentleness that still somehow felt desperate. When he kissed her this time, it wasn't surprise. It was surrender. Deep, slow, and 4 years overdue, tasting of every unsaid word, every lonely night, every secret glance he'd buried while she was still too young. The room erupted in murmurs and flashes from phones, but neither of them cared. He had raised her. She had chosen him. And on the night the world finally saw her as a woman, the only man who had ever truly known her, flaws, scars, and all, finally let himself love her back. Some lines were never meant to be crossed. This one they burned it down together.